Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I want to introduce Amelia Wilson. She is our guest presenter, and she'll really be providing us with some first-hand experience in a combined school library. We also have David Ongley here and Lisa, so I know that they can provide us real life experience as well. So Amelia is the library director of the Esther Greenwald Library in Hoona. And Amelia, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Amelia Wilson, and I grew up here in Hoona and lived for a number of years in Fairbanks and moved back home a couple summers ago, and I've been working here at the library for about a year and a half now. So relatively new to working in a library, but I am happy to share my experiences and look forward to hearing from the other participants as well.
So today we're going to be talking about combined school public libraries, and as you all are aware, that these are libraries that are housed in a single facility. It's usually a school. And the mission and the functions and the operations of school libraries and public libraries are different. So sometimes this can lead to conflict and tension among school and public library staff. And ultimately, it can even lead to the failure of the library. So in an ideal situation, a combined library provides a better facility for students and the community, and while also eliminating duplication of resources. So there's a money savings to be had in these facilities. So there's some real benefits, particularly in areas of Alaska that have very small populations and limited resources and no library services at all. The combined school library is really a viable option. So I know that Amelia is in Hoona, and David and Lisa are in Barrow, and I'm in Juneau, so we're going to skip the map for now. And interspersed throughout the webinar, I have examples of different combined school libraries of different types. And so in Alaska, we actually have 20 patients, and I went through the list today. We have 20, she called them headquartered school public libraries, or combined libraries, and 7 branches, 7 libraries that are actually part of Barrow that are branch libraries. And David, you could probably use the chat box and fill us in on that. Some libraries, such as the Kuskokwim Consortium Library in Bethel, are combined university and a public library, and others are the more typical school public libraries, such as Tri-Valley Community Library, which is located within the Tri-Valley Public School and serves students in grades K through 12. Amelia, which type of library is Esther Greenwald?
We are a combined public school. We serve the K-12. We have one school for K-12, and we have just a little over 100 students within our school K-12. We also serve, there's a preschool and Head Start program that we also service, and of course the public. And we're located within the school.
Great. So again, we talked about in Alaska, combined school public libraries are common in rural parts of the state because they provide essential library services to communities with those small populations and the limited resources. And again, they provide a vital service because without them, the public wouldn't have any public library services. We talked about there's a cost savings to be had. Well, it makes sense to in these small rural communities to share these resources. So if you already have a library within a school, it just makes sense to use it in multiple fashions instead of building and heating and staffing a whole other library building, because you can save money when you reduce the unification of resources, such as having just a single online cataloging, having one reference collection, sharing computers, and expanding a single library collection instead of having two different ones. But again, it's important to keep in mind that school libraries and public libraries have different missions, different functions, and they serve different audiences. While public and school libraries are both educational institutions, the public library's role is different in that their role is to facilitate the informal self-education of individuals from early infancy to old age. Public libraries provide informational, cultural, and recreational learning opportunities to people throughout their whole life. School libraries are designed to support and be an integral part of the student's educational experience. And school librarians work with teachers to plan and develop lessons and teaching materials that support the curriculum. So that's really a difference. Amelia, do you want to talk about your experience with the different missions? And Amelia, as we go through, when you're not speaking, we'll just turn off the mic so we don't have any of that background noise. So I'm going to turn my mic off and let you talk.
Sorry, yes. Okay. Well, our when our library was getting developed, there was a lot of comprehensive planning, and all the different parties were really together and at the table. And so our library mission was designed to encompass and support the school mission. And so I think that it meshes really well. And I just wanted to quickly share our missions and read them. So our library mission is the Esther Greenwald Library serves the public and the school community of Hoonah by making material and services available to all students and residents. In order to meet users' educational, recreational, and professional needs, the library provides current information, promotes learning, and preserves local history. Further, the library shall work in concert with the Hoonah City School District in its mission to partner with parents, elders, and community members to empower our students to be problem solvers and critical thinkers in a global society. And now the school board's education mission statement for the school district is working in partnership with the community of Hoonah. We will empower our children to become self-sufficient and productive citizens. So our missions really complement each other and are really interwoven and very community focused. As with a small community, we are really a hub, an information hub, and so I think our missions work really well.
Thank you, and I think it's always easier to judge how well a library is doing if you have that mission, because you can just apply it and say, is the library meeting our mission? And if you don't have a mission, you really don't know what your library role is and whether or not you're accomplishing it. So I think it's vital to have that mission statement in place and to revisit it over time. So David, this picture probably looks familiar to you. So we're talking about, this is a photograph of the Tezi Consortium Library located in Barrow. And Tezi is unique in that it offers a wide variety of library services to the public and also serves as the academic library for the Vic College. I'm sure I didn't say that properly. Again, as we talked about earlier, Tezi oversees 7 public school combined libraries. And I just learned that today, honestly, David. I didn't know that. And the Tezi Consortium Library is located in the Inupiat Heritage Center. Is that your old car? Which one? The truck or the little car? Okay. So again, combined libraries come in a lot of different configurations, and now we're seeing more combined library museums in Alaska with Seward, and right now Nome, they're working on a combined library as well, a combined library museum as well. The red one, okay. So, in a public library, sometimes you can have issues in a combined public school library, issues surrounding decision-making authority. So some of the most frequent problems that can arise are when there's a failure of governing boards to define what their responsibilities are, when you don't have all the parties involved in planning, when the school authorities fail to recognize the authority of the public library staff. And also failure can occur when you have interference by the school in public functions. I was visiting a library in Healy, and they had some issues surrounding security at the school. The school administration was concerned with the student safety, and they had kind of some new security procedures in place, but these procedures were having a negative impact on the public's use of the library facility. Yes, David says we have to play nice with school principals. So Amelia is going to share her experience with decision-making authority.
It works really well in our school. My direct supervisor is the superintendent, and there's been some really great support with him, and I found that just communication is key. I meet regularly with him and make sure that I'm keeping him informed, and that works really great if any issues arise also, but just in general for any decision making or just informing. And I try my best to play nice with school principals. I have I heard from fellow librarians and learned from their experiences that that can present a challenge at times as far as the I guess decision-making chain of command, and so yeah. But our decision-making works really well. I also make sure that I go to the school board meetings and keep them informed of what's going on at the library, and if any issues arise, that really helps that there's been that open communication with them, because we do not have a library board. It is myself, then the superintendent, and the school board. So I just try to make sure that we're in frequent and open communication.
And so the picture here is just of a banned book display, and so the question was, in a public library, the library director, or oftentimes it's the Children's Youth Services Director, generally decides what's on display. But in a combined school public library, who decides what may be displayed or may not be displayed can sometimes become a potential area of conflict. So that's just what this picture is about. Okay, so this next photograph is of the Chukchi Consortium Library in Kotzebue, and our past ACLA president, Stacy Glazier, is the library director in Chukchi. And the Chukchi Library serves as a public library as well as supporting college students attending the University of Alaska Chukchi campus. And in Kotzebue, the Chukchi Consortium Library depends on financial support from the Northwest Arctic Bureau and the University of Alaska Chukchi campus and some additional grant sources. So all libraries, public libraries of all configurations, can usually weather a minor reduction in funding. It's not easy, some pain will be felt, but they can usually get through it. But in Kotzebue, the library is facing budget cuts from both the borough and the university, and it's had some really negative effects on the library services available in Kotzebue. So David says the difficulty here is the distance between the branch libraries and borough, and we often don't see each other for months at a time. We use email, phone, and video to stay in touch. It's good but not efficient as face-to-face. Yes, I agree. That probably is crucial when it comes to communication, to have some face-to-face time. It's hard to develop relationships with somebody primarily just on the phone, although video can help a lot. So that's good that you are doing that. So we were talking about financing, and so the decline in funds from both sources has made it really difficult for Chukchi to stay open staying open is also like this impossible task. So you'll see that she has, this is a flyer that was on their Facebook. The Friends of the Library are hosting an annual dessert auction to help create with some funding. So when libraries, school and public libraries, combined libraries are well funded, there's some real benefits to the community. You know, you can develop this community focal point for adults and seniors and students and parents. You can have a better selection of materials because your collection can be expanded. You have a library that's easily accessible. You can expand those library hours, so it's not just during the school day, but it can be in the evening and on the weekends. And you have the availability of trained staff, but the financing is crucial. So now we're going to talk about, Amelia, how your library is financed. And David, if you want to share some of that in the chat, that'd be great.
Our library, we're almost solely funded from the school. Our salaries are paid by the school. If we are to get any grants, that is something that the library needs to come up with, and so we really appreciate the state library keeping us informed of different funding opportunities and grants that are out there, and we try to make sure that we're on top of those. We do participate in the book fair, and so funds generated from that go directly to us.
Okay, so you talked about the grants and the school district and the funding. So David, how is Barrow funded? Is it all from the university, or is it all from the borough, or a combination of both? Okay, so David says we get grants, and each branch gets a PLA grant, great, and from the ASL, and another from IMLS Native Library Program, and the borough provides the match. Fabulous. That's good. Okay, so the facility and access to the library. Oftentimes, you know, these school libraries, the only entrance to the library is from the inside of the school. That was the case when I visited Healy. I kind of felt like it was a maze, but people who live there obviously know how to get around. And they did have the entrance well identified with the little blue library sign. Parking lots on school campuses are often located quite a ways because most students don't drive themselves to school. And that can be a real issue for people with mobility issues, you know, for the elderly or the disabled. Again, think about the expansion. When you're in the school facility, it's often hard to think about expanding the library because it's, you know, it's in a school and there's no way to expand it should the population, the student population grow or the community grow. The school district, okay, and oh, I'm sorry, I missed this a comment here. The school district has minimal funding, and I am the only librarian for all 7 schools. Wow, Lisa, that sounds very challenging to me. Okay, so we're going to let Amelia talk about the facility access for her library.
We have an overlap in hours of, for the school and public, but it's not a whole lot. It's just from our public hours begin at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and 1 to 6, and school lets out at 3:30. Most of our students come for their classroom visits during the mornings before the public hours. We do have a couple of times that are in the afternoon when the public is here, but generally we get most of our public coming to access our computers, which are on the opposite end of our library. And our library times are generally about half an hour, and so it's never actually presented a problem for us. As far as access, we did have issues with teachers taking books without checking them out. So I think that is that was an example of one of the challenges of being within this school. And again, with the superintendent's support, that was something that he was able to address with the teachers, and that has since stopped.
I think we have David writing a comment here. So this is a picture of the Dillingham Public Library, and Dillingham has a consortium agreement with the Dillingham City School District and the University of Alaska Bristol Bay campus. So each weekday, 2 classes from the school, I believe it's K through 12, are scheduled to visit the library, and in return, the Dillingham City School District provides financial support for the library's collection development and a part-time school librarian. David has written that all access is through the school. The evening library functions during community rec times, and we let teachers take books on the honor system. Well, David, you're very nice to do that. But as Amelia and I talked about earlier, oftentimes it's when you're in the library and you're looking for a book and you don't realize that the teacher took it, it's it can be a little frustrating. Oh, Lisa said that. Okay. So in addition to the photo of the Dillingham Public Library, we have just a clip of the Dillingham Public Library's 5-year plan. And in their 5-year plan, they talk about maintaining the current staffing levels, which include the part-time school librarian. So they take their combined school public library very seriously, and they're planning for it in the future as well. Is there anything that you wanted to share, Amelia?
I think that the 5-year plan is a great idea, and that's something I'd actually like to look into, and appreciate learning that actually through this sharing. So,
and we will be we'll be posting when we put the recording up. We'll post some links, additional links to resources. So who will pay for the school librarian? Well, presently in Dillingham, it's the school district, I believe. They pay for that part-time position. Okay. So staffing is always important. In some libraries, you can have some conflict when you have different pay scales. So if, for instance, if the school district pays less or more than the public library, that can become an area of conflict. Who covers the library when the school librarian is absent? Is the public library expected to step up, and vice versa? When the public librarian can't get there, if they're late, is the school librarian expected to stay and cover for that? Who covers? Does the school hire a sub when the school librarian isn't present? So these are all kind of issues. We also talked about how many hours the library should be open, and the state in the Administrative Code 57.064 for the Public Library Assistance Grant, there is an eligibility requirement. So if there are so many people within a community, then there's an expectation for how many hours the library should be open. And in order to keep your grant, you have to be open those minimum hours. So I'll let Amelia talk about staffing at her library.
We are open 30 hours a week to the public, Monday through Saturday, 1 to 6 p.m. And we are staffed by myself and one other library staff. And he is really tech savvy, and which is wonderful, because any issues that arise with any of our computers or any access, and really just for patron assistance. So I focus a lot on the programming and collection development, and you know, just overseeing the library. And Casey is really does a lot with the technology. So that's great, because I am not tech savvy.
So, Lisa, how many hours are your libraries open to the public? If you want to share that in the text box, that'd be fabulous. Okay, collection development. Okay, Lisa has written here, we are open during the day with the minimal hours by the school library aide. The evening library staffed for 12 hours a week through the grant, and Lisa trains all of the aides. Okay. Thank you, Lisa, for sharing that. So developing a library collection, it's always a challenge. It's always a pleasure. I think ordering materials for the library is probably one of the most fun parts of being a librarian. But it is a challenge when the collection has to balance and support both the needs of the public and a school. So for school librarians, the majority of their collection development money is spent to buy materials that support the curriculum. Primarily that's nonfiction materials. But for the public library side, they get to spend a lot more money on the fiction and recreational reading needs of early, young children to seniors. All public libraries are required to have a written collection development policy that describes their selection criteria, how they're going to evaluate the collection, how the weeding of materials, and also the reconsideration. If they have a challenge, how they're going to handle any challenge to library materials. Well, it's also, it's not required, but it is, we do believe that it's best practices to suggest that the Public Library Collection Development Policy includes an endorsement of the Library Association Library Bill of Rights and a Freedom to Read statement. Additionally, in the Administrative Code 57.067, Public Library Assistance Grants Combined Public and School Library Facilities, it states that a combined public and school library may not purchase school or curriculum-related library materials with public library assistance grant money or the local matching money, and that the governing body of the library shall retain records and invoices of library materials purchased from public library assistance grant funds and local matching funds for a period of 3 years, and shall make them available for inspection by the division upon request. So the Public Library Assistance Grant is to support the collection, building the collection for the public, and of course that does mean buying materials for students. It just means that you can't buy textbooks. Okay? I'm going to read this and then I'm going to change it over to Amelia. So this is the bright side of collaboration. We work together to meet all the needs, to meet the needs of all our patrons. And the adult collection is shelved separately from the student collection, and there is no censorship. Well, good for you. We didn't actually have that on here, but we'll talk about that. Maybe Amelia will share how she has her collection organized and talk about any censorship issues.
So I really appreciate hearing from Lisa and David. It's great to get insights into how other libraries operate. We also keep our sections separate with our we have a student section, and we did have an issue recently with a challenged book. There was a book that a parent felt was inappropriate for their child to have, and I thought it was great that we had a policy in place for dealing with challenged materials. I also appreciated the assistance from the state library and really rely on them quite a bit, and appreciate all of their insights and assistance, resources and materials to address challenges to the library, or any concerns really that come up. We're still in the process of working with this parent's concerns, and we but I think, yeah, that's definitely an issue that has come up in the service to both the community and to a school. And so and not trying to, do any censorship either, but making sure that we are, listening to the concerns of individuals, and that there's a process in place. So we're not just removing a book because one person finds it unacceptable, but that there's a process in place in order to, make sure that they feel heard, and, that, and then that goes to the school board, and they make the ultimate decision if there's a book to be removed.
That's great. I was visiting a library in Southeast, and I asked the school librarian if they had any challenges, and they did. The most recent one was for the Hunger Games, and then there was another challenge for the book Aristotle and Dante, and can't remember the rest of the title, but she had not removed the books from the material, but she did have a process in place, and she walked the patron through it, and they seemed satisfied. For the most part, I believe people primarily just wanted to be heard. And again, in her library, these were books. It wasn't really a combined public library, but it was a school library, and these were books that really were for older students that a younger student had just stumbled upon. Okay. The next slide is about technology. So, internet access can be complicated when you're trying to meet the unfiltered demands of adults while also keeping students from harm. And schools, school libraries, kind of have to follow that. I think it's called loco parentis, which is basically they are kind of filling a parental role for students when they're in the school, which is something that public libraries don't have to worry about. So it is a little bit more difficult for school libraries when it comes to technology and keeping kids safe online. For schools, schools are required by the Children's Internet Protection Act, SEPA, to have internet filters in place if they are accepting if they're accepting federal funds. And again, usually in a school combined library, all access to the internet is via the school's network. So adult users have internet access only through this filtered network, and they may find that the information they need is blocked. So Amelia has a really great work around this situation, so I'll let her share.
Well, we had an instance where there was a student accessing a site that his parent felt was inappropriate, and so we ended up looking onto how we can increase the filtration and working with the school, because we do have some students that come up for working on independent study courses or needing to have another space to work, and so we'll sometimes have students working here during the day. And so we decided that an increased filtration on a timer was a good solution to that. And so we had set that with AT&T to have that increased filtration, beyond the CIPA standards, to include Facebook and YouTube and things like that up until 1 o'clock when we open to the public. And so we then, when the public comes, that filtration is lessened, and still we maintain the CIPA standards, but we then at that time allow Facebook and YouTube. There was a staff challenge to have the filtration to remain at that heightened level until 3:30 when school gets out, and that was brought forward to the board, the school board, and again the communication with the superintendent and the school board, and keeping them always in the loop. It was agreed upon that that there wasn't really merit to having it at that heightened level until 3:30, and they had even brought support, to my position in stating that the students all have to sign a computer use agreement, and so that some of that needs to be on the student as well, and and there are ways to get around. The students are really good at being able to get around different blocks, and so yeah. But I think our situation, it worked out really well, and there was an agreement between the library and the school to make sure, because we don't we want to look out for the interests of our students, but what we also want to make sure that we're providing access to the sites that our patrons are wanting to access, and a lot of our patrons come here to utilize social media.
I think it's funny because so many libraries are on social media. They have Facebook accounts. That it seems funny that we're blocking students from accessing this form of communication. And of course it can be used inappropriately, but it is a valid form of communication, primarily in small communities who maybe don't even have a published newspaper or any other source of community news. People learn about what's going on through Facebook and other social media. So it's really sad to think that a librarian is unplugging the internet to block that. It can be blocked, like Amelia said, for a period of time throughout the day, and then opened up for the public to use after the school day, if it is becoming a real distraction to learning. But I think to just unplug the internet, and then you just make it impossible for anybody to use the internet for any valid reason, because it's not accessible. So it seems like some kind of workaround needs to happen there. David has written, the library computers were supposed to be filtered during the day, but the school district never got that to work. Now that they're no longer on the OWL network, the filtering is in place. Huh, that's really interesting. The evening patrons are free to use whatever they want, no filtering. Okay. All right. So services and programs. One of the most common problems in combined school libraries is oftentimes there's a lack of space. So is the public feel comfortable to come to the library during the day, or are there hours just in the evenings? If they do come during the school day, is the building just noisy with all the school activity that's taken place? Are parents with very young children, are they going to feel comfortable with all the, if it's the K through 12 with these older students milling about? Many times these combined school libraries don't have meeting room space for the public. Everything's kind of just in this open area. That can be a concern. Amelia, are there any services or programming concerns or benefits in your combined library?
I think, we don't have the largest library, but we do have a separate room that we offer for community use or school use if they need an extra space. We have not had any complaints of any of the sharing of the library, with the exception of last year during our book fair. There was a patron up here studying, and she was made a complaint, actually not to me. She'd gone down to the school and complained that it was noisy and it was hard for her to study. But it was the book fair, so it's hard to shush kids when we've got they're excited about buying books and they get to come up with their class. So I did offer her the room, the study room. I also have a hard time studying, with noise around me, but she didn't want to use the room. So again, we just tried to make sure that we heard her and tried to offer some other options. We, just because there is such a shared space, when we schedule things like children's programming, like the summer reading program, we do that before our library opens, just because there is such limited space.
Okay, looks like David is typing. Okay. And I'm actually looking up a URL that I wanted to share with everybody. And this is not it. So, but I'm going to go on to the next slide here and maybe find it in a minute. Okay. David has written, or Lisa has written, public library has no open hours during school hours, but some schools allow the public in during the day. And programming is the hardest nut to crack, but we have made some progress in the last year. Okay. So some of the common reasons why libraries, these combined libraries, fail. Well, lack of support. And you know, that's lack of support by the city council or the public library board or the school board or even from the public. If you don't have support when you're trying to make things happen, you're just going to hit barriers. People are going to make sure that you aren't successful. So that's a very, very valid reason for failure. The lack of clear understanding and agreement between the boards and the staff of both the public library and the school library. Failure to involve the community. You know, when these funding issues, I think if you have consistently working on your community support, I think when these funding issues come up, you'll have people kind of in your corner helping you, back you up when you are requesting money or equipment or programs or whatever. Lack of buy-in from a library staff, and that can be on both sides. If people have a bad attitude about this combined school public library, that attitude is going to be evident, and it's going to just color everything that they do and everything that you're trying to accomplish. Insufficient staff and funding, again, that is pretty self-evident, and frequent changes in administration and composition of the board. So, and I think that has to do with the mission and vision of your library. If you constantly have new people coming in and they don't understand what it is you're trying to accomplish, I think your vision or your mission of your library can get lost, and I think that's one reason that libraries would fail. So, but I'll let Amelia talk about these areas.
Well, we really have, as I mentioned, some great support by our school board, and again, I think just making sure that I'm keeping them informed and addressing any questions or concerns, or just making sure that I'm listening to them. And so I feel like we've got great support from our administration, the superintendent, and the school board. And I think that we have a clear understanding, the clear governance, and we've got, I think a real shared purpose, shared vision, and mission in serving our youngest patrons, up to our elders. And I think so our missions, really blend together, and it's really a community center. The library is, and our school really is too. We don't have a community hall right now. It's in the process. There's it's about 70% safe, and 30% of it is not safe for use, and so the building has been shut down. And so the school really acts as a place for gathering, whether it's memorials or potlatches or just really any large community. Our Christmas program, typically that is held in our community hall, will be held in the school. And so the school is really open to the community, and really brings the community together. And so so I think that really is a benefit to the library. And just really open we're not separate entities, sharing a facility, and so that I think is really helpful, and just looking to really provide the best service that we can to our community, and that's very supported by the school. I think that we have we've got the adequate staff and funding. I think that we could probably have increased hours and accomplish more, but I think we work well as a team, and we're committed to the community, longtime members of the community, from the community, and enthusiastic about serving. And so yeah, I think that we have the characteristics and the support, that mission and vision to be a successful combined library, and we really don't have the ability, I think, for our small community to provide the level of services if we were to have two separate libraries.
And that's a good point. I think when communities do get to a certain point, when they do expand to a certain size, I think they often do kind of break off and create that separate public library. So David has written, the libraries here serve as one of the only places for folks to go to get out of the house and to have free internet. They are too small for most community events, but small classes or online classes are an option. And actually, Lisa's the person that wrote that. And I think that is a very valid point, that I think every community needs that third space so that you're not at work or school or at home, but well, for students, they will be at school. But that there's a other place that you can go and be with your community and help build that social network that we all need to have a vibrant, healthy community. So yes, they are definitely vital. Okay, so we talked about why they fail and what are the characteristics of successful combined libraries. Well, obviously, just the opposite of everything we talked about before. So they are supported by the City Council and the Public Library Board and the school board and their communities. There's clear governance, so people know what's required of them. They have procedures, and they adhere to those procedures and those policies. A sense of mutual benefit and a shared purpose. So instead of carving out two little separate entities within those one facilities, really it's just one library service. It's kind of like develop their own unique model, and it encompasses both the best of the public library side and the best of the school library side. A combined library that is successful has a commitment to both parties to create strong, comprehensive operating agreement. That, again, we're talking about that one program philosophy. It's adequately staffed and funded, so you don't have the horrible things that are happening in Chukchi where your library service is dwindling and getting smaller. Your library service is going to expand to meet the community's needs. And there's a long-term commitment to the library from everybody involved. And I think a good positive attitude. Amelia talked about that commitment and that attitude, and having people work in the library that are from the community, that have are part of the history of the community and are going to be part of the future of it. I think that is important. Amelia, do you want to share?
I think that your mention of the the policies and having those clear guidelines and procedures in place is essential, because we really don't have a whole lot of issues that arise. I did share two that we had come up, and I was grateful that there was procedures in place, although they have not been updated in a long time. So while I was grateful to have them there, it did shed light on the fact that we could probably pull those out, dust them off, and make sure that they're relevant to today, and not I mean, a lot can change in over time. And so I think that that's something that I would like to do. And again, I think that the State Library is such an amazing resource, and I think for the success of any library, combined school or public, I really appreciate the resources, the staffing that's available at the State Library and the assistance that we get. And I think the comprehensive planning and listening to the community, speaking with the board and administration and staff, that is something that that I'm looking to do, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, and everybody's being heard and has the opportunity to contribute. And so I think, communication, that's the biggest thing that I found that makes our library successful.
Thanks, Amelia, and thanks, David. I have in the chat box I put some links to some documents that I used when I was putting this this little webinar or monthly chat together. And they are a little bit old, particularly the school and public library relationships. It's 2000, but it was published in 2000. But I have to say, it was really, really good. I learned a great deal from this document, and I don't know how much school library combined school public libraries have changed. I still think that a lot of the information in that document is valid. The other one is a combined school public library right for your community, a guide to decision makers that the State Library of Iowa put together. That's from 2006, and it's kind of a checklist as people are going through the process of combining and thinking about how they're going to form this partnership or form these consortial agreements. It's kind of a checklist of like who should be at the table, what kind of things should we talk about, and it goes through every aspect of what we did talk about the facility, about the collection, about staffing, about funding and financing, and it's really useful to have that with you when you're going to have these discussions, because you can fall back on it and say, oh, wait a minute, we didn't discuss this very vital thing about who's going to pay for the school librarian. So, I just put those out there for you guys to look at. Again, Alaska has probably the highest number of combined school libraries in the nation. We talked about having 20 combined school library headquarters or main branches, and then David, the 7 smaller branches that are part of Tezi. So it's a huge part of the library service that we provide in the state, and I don't think that we've necessarily given it enough attention. I do think that we need to kind of create more of a conversation to kind of help these people that are in these agreements to, like Amelia mentioned, look at the documents, make sure that they're current, update them if needed, and as things in the library change, these procedures and policies need to change as well. So again, I want to thank everyone for participating. Amelia, thank you so much for sharing your experience, and David and Lisa, thank you guys for attending. Is there anything else before we sign off?
I appreciated the opportunity to share and also to learn from David and Lisa again how the concerns and successes that you shared today. So I appreciate that. And thank you, Julie.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, that's all I have. So thank you. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday, and I will looking forward to seeing you all, Lisa, that includes you, at ACLA in Juneau in February. All right, bye everybody.
Bye. See you at ACLA.